Thank you. I'm really honoured to be here. Thanks, everyone. Thanks, Tracy, for inviting me. I'm Oksana. I've been in Bali for 12 years, and my passion is detox, and in a lot of ways the same way as this is titled, Radical Detox. I really genuinely believe is the way to reset the body, health, mind and body. Like the soul comes through, we're all in it together. Every part of our body, mind and soul comes together. What is detox? We'll talk about this afternoon. Thank you.
And if you pass that mic to Rory, and then the rest can share. That's good. So over to you, Rory.
Okay, so my name's Rory Callahan, and I'm from Australia. I've been in Bali for 7 years, and my topic is like lifestyle medicine. And, you know, for those that don't know me, I was a sports physio, worked with elite athletes, worked 100 hours a week, burnt out, and then went on that little journey, ended up in Ubud, bought the elephant pants, did ecstatic dance, you know, tuned into all the different modalities. And then I spent the next 8 years writing a book about self-care and lifestyle medicine. And along that journey, I was able to like leave the clinic, work remotely for 7 years. I went from a 100-hour week and calendar to having an empty calendar for 8 years, which allowed me to write the book. And I had to tune into different ways of living to be able to do that. So my big thing is just teaching people how to like personalize their own pathway, and what works for you or you might be different, but the fundamental principles are the same. So I'll talk about the 12 medicines, I'll talk about integrative medicine, I'll talk about, you know, community and connection as like the elixir to longevity, and just remind you that you've never needed to be fixed. So that's my jam.
Love it, love it. So you can keep the microphone. You and Oksana have got that one. And then now we move on to Zoe. And if I can get you just to mic up the sound a little bit higher for these guys as well.
Hi everyone, my name's Zoë Palmer-Wright, and I'm a nutritionist and a naturopath and a women's hormone expert, and I've been in clinical practice internationally for the past 14 years, and I originally was in general practice, so I was working with people with all sorts of chronic conditions ranging from IBS to inflammatory bowel disease to hay fever to eczema, like you name it basically. But over the past 5 years I've been specializing more in women's health and specifically in women's hormone imbalances, because over the 14 years I've been in clinical practice, I've just seen more and more problems with hormone imbalances, and it's becoming more and more common. So it's something I'm really passionate about helping women with. So yeah, that's my thing, and I work with in a kind of really 360-degree approach, because although food is the foundation for me and food is medicine, it's certainly not the whole picture. And definitely there's the whole stress aspect and your mind and your emotions, and then there's also your lifestyle and your environmental exposures. And I'm also a big believer in detox and detoxification, and I've got background in researching and fasting as well. So I'm very aware of the power of detoxification and how our exposure to toxins in our environment can really negatively impact our health. So I'm really looking forward to talking about that more tonight.
And look, so it's your first time here, Zoe, as well as Oksana and Rory, but you're a best-selling author as well.
Yeah.
Is that correct? Can you tell everyone what the book is called and what it's for?
It's called A Beautiful Balance, and it's about functional nutrition, basically, and how you can use food as medicine. And it's part recipe book and then part a nutrition philosophy, basically.
Thank you very much. Thank you. And we'll pass it to Tracy, a microphone, and if microphone nice and loud, please. Let's go, Tracy. Deep breath. Let's go.
Here we go.
Who you are?
Oh, okay. My name's Tracy G. I'm here most months as the founder of Health Hub Bali, bring these lovely people together. This, well, first of all, what is Health Hub? Rob will read that out in a moment. But it's a platform to connect people to better health, and the entry point is functional medicine. It's what we call it like a pragmatic style of medicine. Over the last 7 months, we've building the base for the future of health, this conversation. Where it started through the world with the different ones in our collective was the focus on preventative medicine and that it be evidence and science-based. So therefore, much of what Health Hub has to do is to do with testing and assessing, educating and raising awareness, and then we have the protocols and the treatments on a journey, so we create whole health journeys. And we're saying here in Bali is the place to do it because we have time and space to address real issues and that people can reinvent their life. Each one here has got a particular role, and we'll cover that later in the conversation. This month is on Radical Detox.
And you know what? I think you already summed up what Health Hub Bali is. You mentioned about a platform that connects, health professionals, practitioners, that has a wonderful way of creating individualized client-patient journeys for people to reclaim their own health. And the fact that it's science-backed, because quite often, here in Bali, we know about wellness, we know about medical, or the lack of, but we know about medical, right? So that health tourism bridges a gap between the two. And that's what Health Hub Bali really does, and bringing together the best in the world to make that happen, to facilitate it. And it's something that you've been working on for, as Rory knows, a lot more than me, like 8 or 10 years. And part of what this is about is being able to share this beautiful mind of yours in a way that connects everything together, and in a way that people can have great benefits. So this is some of the essences of what Health Hub Bali is. But look, so let's get into tonight's topic. So maybe you want to give us a little intro, and what I'll ask you is to point that microphone right at your mouth. There you go. Every month we do this. It's good. And then we can start today's proceedings.
Yeah. So basically I just said, it's about radical detox and why the importance of that. Even before I go into that, when we talk about integrative health, a few here are involved in integrative health, and what I wanted to just mention was about Zoe's background. Her internship was for 1 year in London Royal Hospital, and it had an integrative...
Yeah, it was the Royal London Hospital for Integrated Medicine, which is... It's a really interesting place because it combines conventional doctors and medicine with complementary practitioners, and really to get the best outcomes for patients. I was actually there for 2 years in the end, but I was being mentored by an amazing doctor there who had he was a background as a GP basically, so he'd had that whole conventional background, and then he'd gone on to specialise in all these kind of complementary modalities, and he was just incredible, what he was doing with patients and how he was approaching things, and I really witnessed how powerful an integrated approach can truly be.
So what we're saying is that when people have it, usually we'd say the wake-up call is usually a diagnosis or something health-wise. We put up with things, our body, we'd say, compromises, get weaker until we get something major happen, and that's the motivating factor. So with these doctors over the years, with their testing, they recognise things and then they'll address whatever the symptom is that keep people alive. With Health Hub, with the preventative model, we're looking at what we call indicators, how the body's functioning, and then how we can support that. But a big part of this is pathogens. And what happens is that usually our natural healing system, which when I say that is as a child or through life, we cut ourselves and it heals naturally. We can see it, or internally there's hundreds of thousands of things happening every second that we're totally unaware of. But our body has got this innate sense to come into balance. But over a period of time of it compromising, and usually today we say it's toxins, and that's why we've got this subject about radical detox, is because the last, say, 50 years, the processed foods, and we'll go into what each one here feels a detox is and what it means. They'll share some of the different aspects of that. But the build-up of that clogging up the body leaves a state that the body can't heal. And it's broken, and then it shows up as some kind of disease. And that's usually what's being addressed, whether it could be just something simply like allergies or hormonal issues. But we're saying clear the body, this radical detox, and then let's see what is underneath really causing things.
So I guess the first question then is, for everyone here, what is a detox? Because some people in the audience watching online or here live, probably wondering, okay, I've heard of detox, right? I have an idea that, my friend did one. It's the usual thing. My friend did one and it was horrible, right? Or my friend did one and it was great. Or my friend did one and lost all this weight and became like a skeleton. So we have all of these different opinions of what a detox is flying around. So maybe I think that's the first question for everybody here. What is a detox?
So a detox is basically a process or a program that you do that actually helps to enhance your elimination channels. Because obviously, I mean, I hear a lot people who are skeptical about the idea of detox, or people who associate detox with really unhealthy diet culture, you know, because of things like laxative teas on Instagram and people with disordered eating, like, you know, using these kind of detox teas. So it gives the word detox a bad name, basically, and gives completely the wrong impression about what a proper detox actually is. So And you know, I hear people arguing against detox because they say, well, we don't need to do detox, right? Because detox is a continual process in the human body. And if our body wasn't continually detoxing, we would die effectively of auto-intoxication. And that's true. But that doesn't mean that system doesn't need a helping hand, because obviously our detoxification channels and systems were built way before we developed thousands and thousands and thousands of synthetic chemicals and released them into our air, water, food, you name it. So our bodies have to deal with all the original things they had to process in our environment, and also internally, because obviously as a byproduct of metabolism, our body produces toxins as well that our body needs to get rid of. So, but now it's got a double whammy, because it's got all of those to deal with, the original environmental toxins it had to deal with, plus all these thousands and thousands and thousands of synthetic chemicals. So sometimes people's detoxification mechanisms get overwhelmed, and so they need a helping hand to get stuff out. Because if the body can't, in that moment, if the body can't process a toxin, it will put it somewhere in the body surrounded by fat to protect you from it until it can like get rid of it later. But if you never deal with that, toxins can build up in the tissues and the organs and the cells and prevent proper optimal functioning. And then that can lead down the pathway to disease, chronic diseases, basically. So, so a detox is a period of time where you devote it specifically to enhancing your body's elimination channels to get all that gunk out of your body so you can optimize the functioning of your cells and organs and tissues.
Wonderful. And so Rory can join. Yeah.
So I promised myself I'm going to be pretty brutal and pretty honest. You know, I've worked with a nutritional cleansing company. We've had about 50,000 customers. I've done the intermittent fasting. I've had the coffee enema on the back of the door with my legs up in the air getting ready to do it before someone taught me that there was a simpler way of, you know, detoxifying the body. So, and I guess the detoxification is just a process, and it's so much more than just the digestive system. So for me, the way I look at it is, you know, we've got 37.2 trillion cells that basically replicate and regenerate at a rate of 50 million cells per second. So as we talk right now, our innate wisdom is just regenerating 50 million cells every second without conscious control. So there's kind of nothing we actually need to do other than just support that process and make sure that we don't stuff it up. Yeah? So if we drink alcohol, we put tobacco, we eat shitty food, we live in environments where the air is polluted, the water's polluted, then yeah, like we need to do this stuff more regularly. But if you're in these like blue zones like Costa Rica or, you know, Okinawa in Japan, it's like you don't really need to detox as much. But the one thing I see now is for every 2 hours that people spend on technology, their apathy goes up, their empathy and their compassion goes down. So if there's one thing you want to detox from, it's probably technology. The other thing is lifestyle. So a lot of people, you probably need a detox from your job. That's another thing, or your boss, or your toxic relationships, or people in your proximity. The 5 people you spend the most time with, you might need a little bit of a alone time just to like reset and just see like where the energy and the vibe is circular and shared, where people meet you at the same level as the love and the care and the compassion that you give them, right? So when I think about detoxification, it's like, yes, 37.2 trillion cells, yes, 380 trillion bacteria and viruses, which means we're more kind of like bacteria and viruses than we are cells. You know, we've got 78 organs, we've got 12 organ systems. One of them is the detoxification system and digestive system and things like that, right? So, but then you look at the things that impact that. So what creates stress in your life? Cortisol in your system. Where do you need a detox from that? What behaviors are you making, or what environments do you live in, and what behaviors does that promote, which makes you keep making habits or keep doing habits which you know don't serve you. You know what I mean? So if I live in a party town like Canggu, I drink way more beers than if I'm in Uluwatu on an island surfing. You know, it's just because the environment doesn't enable me to make those decisions as easy, so I have to be really conscious of it, right? So detoxification for me is everything, not just food, not just intermittent fasting, not just coffee enemas on the back of a door. There's a lot of stuff to it for me.
And look, just before we go to Oksana, Ayu, sorry darling, you have two people here. Can you get some chairs for them so they feel a bit closer and feel part of this? Otherwise they're going to be over there in the dark. We like to bring people in. So get involved. Bring them in. More chairs. Great. So Oksana, thank you, Brother Rory. Lovely,
Yes,
brother. Thank you.
I'd like to... Is that mic working?
Let's see. Brother Guzman, if we just check the mic. Yep. Just
Check.
talk.
Is that fine? Yeah? Can you hear it? Okay. Thanks. That was brilliant to add on to what everybody has said so far. So for me, detoxification is basically like the word basically talks about. We've got toxification. We are consistently having toxins come into our body through stress or through environmental factors. But what about the detox? So it's the removal of the toxins. A lot of the times that we're thinking about our lifestyle, our health, we're constantly thinking about how we can add something. I'm missing iron, I'm missing a little bit of B12, I'm missing all these things. It's all about missing. One of the brilliant things about the art of detoxification is about abstaining. It's actually the removal of everything. Removal of everything coming in to see how much we can remove out. And the body has these amazing detox pathways, whether it's the mouth, the ears, the nose, the lungs, our skin, our biggest organ being the skin, from our bowels to all the organs inside. And so detoxification is basically a process of going through systematically, and the body actually does this. We can help it with herbs, we can help it with sunshine, we can help it with saunas and detox modalities, like all sorts of things that we'll go into. But basically it's about allowing the body to drain its pathways, right? Drain that which is accumulated. Toxification is accumulation, detoxification is the drainage of that, restoring the innate cells back to its prime original state. And so therefore, if the cell is vibing at its original state, then our mind is going to be vibing at that amazing state that's connected to God source connection and everybody else and all the other sort of connections that we have amongst each other. So our heart opens up. If we have accumulation, all of that is heavy, whether it's our accumulation of stress from the past relationships, or of a mother and father and trauma and all of that coming along with us, we start to let go and we start to leave that baggage behind. And whether it's heavy metals or pathogens or anything else that's invading our body, that's sitting inside of us, on top of us, dragging behind us, detoxification is about letting that go and letting that sort of innate, what did you say?
Just like pass through?
Yeah, pass through, but letting our soul connection come through. So our original beingness come through.
Something is hanging with me, something that Rory said earlier on about crowd participation and things that happen by chance. So does anyone have any questions just on the definition of what detox is? Or does anyone here not clear about anything? Right? Just double checking. Remember, no question's a bad question, right? Every question's a good question. All right, that's good. We start from there. This is good. All right, so thank you for everyone for the first question. Now, Tracy, is there anything you'd like to add to that, or our next question?
Just in perspective, say Oksana's work here and the base of it is from Anne Wigmore. There's another word called natural hygiene.
Natural hygiene, yeah.
Natural hygiene. And the Hippocrates Institute, it's all based in USA. It was started, but it's probably in modern times, so the last, say, 70 years or whatever, that's the root of natural detoxing and understanding the way we function.
Yeah, but natural hygiene basically goes, centuries behind with all the fasting and the water fasting. And basically the idea is no matter what ailment you have, whether it's mental or it's physical, to cancers or schizophrenia or pretty severe sort of mental issues, their idea was that all you needed to do, similar to what all the Bible and the Quran and all the books say, is go to the mountaintop, find a river, a clean stream, and stay there for 30, 40 days and fast. And you'll come back completely reset. And you might find yourself and God and that connection. But everything will be healed, and that's all it takes. So it's getting out of the way rather than adding something.
Yeah. And the other thing was the analogy of the table with the food and the flies. Can you explain that one?
Yeah, so where did that segue from? So, yeah, what is holistic healing? Imagine a room, a closed room, a closet, and there's a rubbish bin, and that rubbish bin's got food scraps and meat pies and leftover pizzas, and it's been there for months or years, and it's rotting. And then what happens? There's mold that grows there, flies come in, worms, rats, what else, vermin, all sorts of things come in. Now, we can go into that room and start spraying and laying traps and maybe throwing a bomb in there and, trying chemically to get rid of the pathogens that have just started to breed in there, or we just take the rubbish out.
One thing in this section that we were going to talk about, and I'm going to make it for you, Brother Rory, might be difficult, but I don't think so. I know you can handle it, right? So the 12 systems of Selfcare Global, now might be a good time to, as briefly as you can, explain what they are. I think it's very relevant to this conversation.
Yeah. So one of the beautiful things I love to do is systems and frameworks, So you get this whole person, and then, as you've heard me mention, I broke it down into individual kind of parts and systems and things like that. But the key thing is that the human vessel isn't a combination of parts. It's this whole being, this microbiome within this bigger biome within the universe, right? So if we want to get really deep, just look up at the stars and be like, we don't actually know anything. We're just kind of making it up as we go and becoming aware of it and using science as a way to be curious to figure things out so that we can live in harmony and potentially live to our ultimate lifespan, right? So the 12 medicines, it was just a way of integrating into, the healthcare industry and creating a framework that everyday people could understand, like my mum. She's one person I haven't been able to help as much as I've helped others, so I created something that she would read and hopefully understand. So it starts with, the three things outside of us. So obviously there is environment and nature. So everyone knows it feels good to go to the beach, right? Watch the sunset, so on and so forth, right? Oxygen, motion, like doctors prescribe it in Scotland now. It's stupid that we even have to say that. And then connection is medicine. So if you look at the blue zones in the world, these are the places where people naturally live the longest. And there's 95-year-old ladies climbing trees in Okinawa, with no chronic disease. It's not even present in their society. And the core medicine is connection. People look after each other over their lifespan. That's why Bali is so beautiful, right? We saw people get through the pandemic with no money. It was never about money, never about buying things, doing things, right? And then the environment, so, social environment, geographical environment, cultural environment. When a flower doesn't blossom and bloom in the way that nature intended, you don't fix the flower. You fix the environment in which it's trying to grow. We can change environment, like jump on a plane, come to Bali, right? So they're the three things outside of it. And then once we go inwards, we look at our blueprints, we look at genes, epigenetics, genetic superheroes, people who have these genetic predispositions for cystic fibrosis, but for some reason they don't get it. People with HIV who can live long, healthy lives, right? Even though they've got this pathogen in their system because their lifestyle sustains them. So, and then after that, obviously, there's mind, but in the mind is the three levels of the mind. There's feeling beings that think, emotions, traumas, all that type of stuff. And then after the mind, we start looking at really simple things like movement. Motion is lotion, right? If you sit in a chair all day for 8 hours, you get sore back, sore neck, you come see me as a physio. You give me a lot of money and I'll see you next week, and you just keep doing that forever. Or chiropractors, you see them 3 times a week, etc. And then after that, we got, after movement is medicine, we've got work is medicine, so passion, purpose, play. Or not, right? Or not. Yeah, 95% of people or not. There are most people here are probably doing something they love or working towards it. Lifestyle is medicine. So it's like, what's your ideal day? Like, why the hell are you in Bali? Like, why are you here? Like, you got the dog, you got a way to make money to cover your needs. There's stuff like this that goes on. There's talks like this you can come and just hang out with on a, Monday night is it? And then after that, we've got spirituality as medicine. So I'm not even going to go into the depths of that, whatever that is for you, but essentially treat people in the way that you want to be treated. That's like the golden rule for all religions, all senses of spirituality and the interconnectedness of all things. And then we start looking at, modern medicine, which is healthcare, sick care. And then obviously after that, technology is medicine as well. So like this is technology. People watching on Instagram, Facebook, they can tune in, they can learn, right? We can work remotely from Bali because of technology. And then it comes back around to nature because technology is an extension of nature, right? So they're the 12 medicines, and then you're in the middle. You get to make cool choices.
Beautiful, man. You did it in such a short time, but succinctly. You did really well. It was beautiful. I got some new dimensions of it listening to you that time. So look, Tracy, and then we'll go to Zoe after this. So we're here in Bali, right? You mentioned Bali a few times there. By the way, this is episode number 7. So check the last 6 because they're amazing, right? Different panel each time with some phenomenal insights that will really help you to reclaim your health. But I'm not going to talk about those now. So Bali, right? So we know that Bali is on 2 different ley lines. It's the heart chakra of the world. Like there's many things that make Bali a unique place from a health perspective. But can you add to that as we go into our next question of why Bali? Why Bali is the perfect container for this?
Hey, Rob, just quickly, I forgot to add food is medicine.
Yeah. That was close.
Anyway, so why Bali, Trace?
Why Bali? Okay. So to reset and restore, we have amazing people. We have amazing people from all over the world with a background that can guide people. We have the last 30 years retreats happening here. But at the moment, what we're pulling together is the science. So when people are what we call health seekers or vitality seekers are coming, Bali is attracting it because they have the time and space to address things they've never been able to address. We've got retreats here. We've got some centre owners and retreat people here that can guide them in a way they've never been able to experience before. I won't go into the energy, but the detox side of it, what I want to say for whole health is that once we start detoxing, and Oksana alluded to the different pathways, just to be aware of that our organs need to be clear to be able to handle any changes once we go into these, detox phases. And same with Zoe just clarified that where the toxins actually sit in the fat cells. Where are tumours formed? Why are they formed? So we'll cover these conversations next year on Conversations That Matter. But at the moment what we're talking is about a radical detox. So here in Bali, what we can offer very quickly, which is, as a rule, most people don't have the time to go on these lengthy detoxes, and sometimes it can mutate into other issues. They go on raw food or different types of fasting that may not be good for them. So the idea is that we measure, we test, we check, continually check in how their biome is actually going. But also to help their liver and kidney. Like last week we had Radical Reset. We had one of the clinics here where they can actually, with using say O3, which is ozone, to clean the blood and filter that, so we can take one load off the body. There is colonics and fasting regimes where just for a week, whether it be 4 days or a week, just to clean things out. For far infrared, to clean the skin where the heavy metals and that are sitting in the tissue. One of the only ways to get it out is through the skin. So we clean the blood, the skin. What else?
Basically all the organs. Just adding to what you're saying, we're such fastidious cleaners on the outside, right? So we wash our hair, we scrub our skin, we go to the manicure, pedicure, we brush our teeth every day, we do our laundry, we vacuum, we take the rubbish out. If we had any idea of what was going on inside, if we actually physically could see how to have a little box and open up and take out our organs and liver, and we would look at them, we would do the same. We would fastidiously start cleaning and washing and getting them clean, because if we had that connection. But there's a disconnection, right? We can only see the outside. We do worry about skin and blemishes and pimples, but that internal connection, and what we do with detox is basically we can't access it from the outside. We have to go from the inside out, right? So that's what detox really is.
And that's what these retreats or workshops can do. We can give information and education so people can, with that knowledge, then can create their own programs. And instead of coming just to Bali to do, say, retreats, we address these things first. We get the testing and educating the indicators right, create a program for them, and if it's only 1 week, and then after that go and do the other programs for lifestyle. It doesn't take much to reset.
Yeah. And look, so because...
Fast track.
Fast track. So because you want to keep this information packed, but also relevant to you, so we're going to have one more question, then we're going to come to the audience, right? So we will, in about 5 minutes, this microphone, not now, darling, in 5 minutes, we'll go out to the audience, and then if you have a question, remember to point this microphone directly at your mouth. It sounds crazy, but here doesn't work, but here works, just so you know. So you want to continue?
Yeah, and the other thing is, say, Zoe will say now, because if we have a talk on the immune system, I say no one will turn up. But if we talk hormones, Hashimoto's, thyroid, the audience is full. And why we've also got, for women, they've always had questions about this. But what's happening now is more the men are asking about that. They don't know who to go to or what hormone test to get. So that's what we're creating too, that kind of support, and then really to understand how our thoughts, feelings and emotions impact our hormones as well. And then is there some issue? That's where blood work and these kind of tests can help.
Can I just add to that, Trace?
Yes.
So it's like what people miss, right, is this initial baseline measurement. Now, I spent 2 years with some of the best people in their fields chasing up why I was tired, chronic fatigue, so on and so forth, right? I spent $100,000 running around in circles getting test after test after test after test after test, and I did not feel any better. So the whole point is to test, to see where your body is in and out of balance. So we've got people like Tracy in the clinics that she's associated with that can actually do that here, which was a big thing that was missing in Bali for a long time. You know, I had to get blood tests sent to Germany. Like, we shouldn't need to do that. Not everyone has $2,000 to get blood tests to, like, figure out which of the pathogens are kind of like driving it the most. And it was just like a parasite, a bacteria, and something else. You know, I did a little protocol, boom, done. So it's like the assessment helps, but what we then do is we run a protocol, and then we can create change and get you back to harmony, right? And that's where we kind of figure out the process on a personalized level for you. And, you know, as integrated teams, it's like our job is you. It's not about us. Like, I'm not here for me today. I hope there's something in this that just kind of sparks a bit of interest, gives you a bit of insight as to how to find harmony within yourself, reminds you of that. And then as a collective community, we talked about why Bali, and Robert and I talk about this a lot. You know, this concept of, have you heard of Tree Hitakarana? Yeah? So the basically connection human to nature, human to spirit. So you see all the spiritual practices, the little offerings every day. We have to do gratitude journals for that. That is a cultural thing, to be grateful for everything that they have. Right, which is why we come here and we're so like, wow, this is so welcoming and warm. Human to human, have you noticed how people will just naturally help you here? It's not a thing. There's not a value proposition. There's not always an offering. It's like, you just need help, I'll help you. The thing that is missing is the connection to nature, right? Yeah, the pollution, the infrastructure. So we've had a lot of people in the pandemic come through and build waste management facilities in Lembongan and so on and so forth. So our job as a community is to be like, you know, sovereign in ourselves, and then to just, whatever we do in whatever way, just make sure that we keep connecting ourselves to nature and each other and the communities, because the other two parts over here are already done. The human and spirit, done. We just need to make sure that we don't do things that make the environments toxic, so that we have to do all these detoxification protocols, right?
Yeah, and so I'll just say, and then I want to hear about the hormones. So the bottom line is, there's so much about looking after the planet, looking after the planet,
I've got permission to do that, by the way. I've got permission.
But probably what we'd say is look after yourself. You're a whole ecosystem inside yourself. You start looking after that, you'll look after the planet, you'll look after the oceans, you'll be concerned about what you eat and where your food comes from. And this is what we will be going through next year on Conversations That Matter. But for now, it's really about hormones.
So quickly to Zoe, and then we'll get to the audience after that. I know you want to hear about the hormones. We can do that afterwards. So some of the biggest blocks, right? So we have this audience, about 50-50 men and women. You mentioned before that like, not that you specialize, but you see more women than men. But what have you noticed if there's three, maybe two or three, what are the biggest blocks that people are facing right now that you've noticed in the last years here living in Bali?
Living in Bali specifically, like blocks to their health.
Well, you're online, so blocks to health.
Yeah, blocks to health. I mean, in terms of some of the biggest contributing factors that I've observed, in terms of people with hormone imbalances, but people with other chronic conditions, right, are people underestimate the impact of stress on their health. Like massively underestimate it. And whenever I've been working with clients, it's fairly easy when someone comes to work with a clinical nutritionist and naturopath that they understand that there's a connection obviously between nutrition and health, and they're willing to make some changes in their nutrition to help achieve optimal health. It's harder to get them to make changes to their stress levels, to manage that and make significant changes in the way they're living their life or the way they're working, because obviously we live in a culture and a society that it's only really values doing, right? It doesn't really value being. So everyone's always like striving, pushing, juggling, and then stress is basically causing so much damage to people's health. And one thing I'm really aware of, and when I create programs for women to help them tackle hormone imbalances. So I work with conditions ranging from terrible PMS to endometriosis to polycystic ovarian syndrome to really heavy and painful periods, to all these kind of women's health issues. And one thing that people don't often realize is the strong connection between your stress hormones and your sex hormones. And actually, because the body will always prioritize survival, that's like the biggest thing it's going to prioritize. If it has to choose, if it's going to make a stress hormone or a sex hormone, and you're under stress, it's going to make the stress hormone, basically. And then you end up with deficits of your sex hormones, and then that can cause hormonal havoc, basically. So that's a big one, the stress aspect.
What would be really interesting as well, and then we will go to the audience, I promise, is because, again, part of the challenge of running panels, right, we do it quite often, is, there can be a possibility that too much conversation happens here, which is not happening today, by the way, and not enough questions or conversations happening here. So, and that's one. The second one is taking home valuable insights that can help to increase the quality of the life that you're living. So based upon that one, maybe just a quick one from each of you, then we'll go to the audience. If there was one process or one idea or one habit that you could pass on to the audience watching now to help them in this regard of radical reset, what would it be? Right? Advice. So you can start from you and work our way this way.
Okay, so basically, I don't think this mic is working. So basically what I would recommend is to drink more juices, definitely, and smoothies, and in the form of green smoothies with fruit. Hydration and bowel movements are super important. So what ends up happening is most people are actually constipated and dehydrated on a cellular level. So both those two problems, like we eat 3 times a day with snacks and meals and, snacks in between, all sorts of things. How many times do we actually go to the bathroom every day? Animals, when they eat, they go to the bathroom. It's a 1 in and it's a 1 out. We're lucky if we get 3 in, 1 out. Right, so what's happening to all the other stuff that's getting backlogged? So bowel movements are super, super important. And in terms of digestion, in my books, all ailments start with some digestive issues. So really pay attention to your digestive system and be alerted for that with that.
How many smoothies or juices a day? Again, this is very generic information. I know it's specificity, but just to give some people something to hold on to.
Yeah, so why I say juicing. Juicing is instantly almost a 20-minute blood transfusion of vitamins. So instead of taking pills and, I need my vitamin A, I need my vitamin B complex, a glass of juice or multicoloured vegetables or fruits is basically what's going to sustain us in the vitamin section. Fruits are cleansers, vegetables are mineralizers and vitamins, right? And then so that's amazing. And that bypasses digestion, that goes straight into the bloodstream. With smoothies, it's a different system. There's a lot of fibre in there, so it slows down the digestive system, but it still switches it on. Everything is already masticated into tiny little pieces that it can also be absorbed and digested. So a lot of us have actually digestive absorption problems. This way, you're ticking the box and getting your nutrition in, and then what you eat is what you eat.
Wonderful. Brother Rory.
I never know what I'm going to say. I could just say get a dog. That would probably help. But
Bali dog.
Yeah, I spent the last 8 years trying to figure out what's the one thing. There is no one thing, It's like that's the truth, right? So the one thing I could give you, the reason why I'm here is to show you where to look and not tell you what to see. It's your journey. You got to find what feels good for you. So if you do want to check it out, there's a website, selfcare.global, super simple. And I'm just going to share things like this and habits of high-performing people. Pick the ones that work for you. But ultimately, just notice what brings you back to harmony, makes you feel peaceful, what environments, people, proximity, where do you feel bliss? For me, it's on a scooter, on a random island, surfing, in nature, right? That's what gives me bliss. Every cell in my body is vibrating and being like, Roars, this is it, man. And then I come back to Canggu and then I'm on the shortcut and I'm like, he's trying to jump off the bike and I'm just like, that's the opposite. And then I go and settle down Uluwatu down kind of on the East Coast and I'm waking up to the sunrise and I'm like, this is sick, and it feels slow. But it's because life's meant to be present. So just find stillness, slow down to speed up. There's some tools on that website, selfcare.global. Find what works for you, whatever makes you feel good, whatever helps you find harmony, and just personalize it and make it your own.
Nice.
So I'd second both of these things. And also another thing that is extremely common, I found that people have issues with and they're not maybe aware of it, is blood sugar regulation. So a lot of people unknowingly have some degree of insulin resistance going on. And down the track, that's obviously why we have pretty much an epidemic of diabetes type 2, because people are not properly managing their blood sugar levels. And it goes from a state of insulin resistance to pre-diabetes to actually type 2 diabetes, and it's becoming more and more common, and it's completely diet and lifestyle related, because it's not like diabetes type 1, which is autoimmune. It is completely a diet and lifestyle related disease that is entirely preventable. And I think a big thing that I would say is try and pay attention to what's happening in your own body in terms of blood sugar, because if you're regularly getting hangry, if you guys hungry and angry, or if you're feeling like your blood sugar dropping on a regular basis, I'd really recommend doing something about that, looking at balancing your meals better, so you're getting a nice balance of making sure you're getting protein at every meal with fats, with fibre, because that will slow the release of the sugars in the meal into your bloodstream. And that's really, really important, because if you're in a state of insulin resistance, it's going to basically increase inflammation in your body. It's going to lead to all sorts of other imbalances. So, that would be one of my number one things.
Thank you very much. And Tracy, is there anything you'd like to add before we go to the audience? And if you grab this microphone? Yeah,
just the bit about radical responsibility and the choices that we have, even with hormones. It's our choice. So just being aware of this, learning this, and what's playing out in our life. What have I contributed to?
Wonderful, thank you. So the gentleman over here with the glasses who I've met, but the name escapes me, he had the first question. Yeah, was it Rob? There you go. So just point that microphone at your mouth. I know it sounds crazy, but it's true.
I wanted to bring maybe a little bit of awareness to why Bali, because of the costs. And I think that is a very significant factor that my estimation, I'm from America, I live here 2 years, the protocols I've experienced here, I would say, are 60% less. Would you agree?
Rory wants to answer that one. And by the way, while Rory's about to answer that one, so when you ask your question, if you can direct it to someone, not ask for everybody, otherwise we'll be here forever. Tracy, Zoe, Rory, and Oksana. Okay, great.
So the cost of healthcare is obviously cheaper. Like, that's a big thing. But the thing I love working with people with is I've got friends back home in Australia that are making 6 figures and living paycheck to paycheck, which increases their stress. They've got mortgages they can't afford. I've got friends here who are Balinese that own their land. They make $400 a month. They're not stressed, and they've got 6 packs, and they've got a fair bit of time. You know what I mean? So I think the thing that makes Bali, healthy is just, one, the cost of living. Most people could probably get by on $500 a week here, right? You know, that's food, water, shelter covered. And then it's like your other stuff that you need, you know. That's like base level. If you make $1,000 a week or whatever, then you're killing it over here. It's equivalent to probably 100K in US, or, you know, maybe 150K in Australia. And the thing is, if you're living that lifestyle, you don't need us. You know what I mean? You don't need us. You don't need to pay for the physios. You don't need to pay for the nutritionists, especially if the environment is set up in a way where, like, Beetle Nuts next door, you're like, we've got all these amazing, you know, people and cafes and restaurants and retreats and places like this where it's like, it's all there. You just got to tune into it and just go there rather than going there. So the environment's very enabling. But yeah, cost of healthcare is cheaper. Cost of living is cheaper. Beaches are cool. Got more time. You know what I mean? It's like, there's just so many parts to it.
Wow. Sorry, my wife and kids just showed up. Wow, great. You got a 6-year-old and an 8-year-old coming through. You have been warned. Wonderful. So, in English, with questions, just raise your hand, okay? Carol's got a question. Now, whilst the microphone is finding its way to Carol, remember that Health Hub Bali, that's Tracy sitting here, is based in Pereiranan, or Pereiranan, however you want to pronounce it. And every Tuesday, right, you have the Tuesday talks where you go deeper into a lot of these topics, so you can get real deep. With a panel, you can't necessarily go all the way in, otherwise you'll be here for 3 hours. So that is a great opportunity to go and to listen and to immerse yourself more in this kind of content. Sister Carol, over to you.
So I have 2 questions, actually. The first one to Oksana and to Zoe, a woman question. And it has to do with the juicing that you mentioned earlier. From everything that I understand about menopause, it just tells me that I should not rely on fruits. I should not put any sugar into my body, because my body now does not eliminate fruits in the way that it used to, and that it should concentrate on eliminating the bad fat rather than, or the fat rather than the sugar. So I'm very confused, because that goes against everything that I'm hearing about what it is that I'm going through being premenopausal.
Can I ask you a question on that?
Yes.
So when you say your body doesn't process or eliminate sugar in the same way,
yes, what
exactly do you mean by that, like in terms of your direct experience?
Well, no, what I mean is that everything that I hear is that we don't, when you get into premenopause,
yes,
you don't eliminate sugars in the way that your younger body used to, and that if you don't eliminate the sugars, then it's going to pile up in your body and it's going to go against you.
So what I would say in regard to that is your metabolism can definitely shift as you enter the perimenopausal transition. However, obviously, if we're talking about having a green juice like once a day, like that's
but that's vegetable. I'm
Yeah.
talking about fruits.
Yeah, yeah.
And sugars.
So in terms of like reducing your overall refined sugar intake and your refined carbohydrate intake, they're the ones you definitely want to be minimizing at any stage in life. But yes, also when you're perimenopausal, because obviously one of the things that can happen to women as they go through the perimenopausal transition is that actually what a lot of people don't know about that transition is that it's not like just luck of the draw, your experience of it, like how it is. You can actually prepare your body to make it just a blip on your radar rather than a really unpleasant situation. And one of the things that can actually make it a lot worse and can actually make you store a lot more weight is when your HPA axis is dysregulated. So that's your hypothalamus, your pituitary gland, and your adrenals that sit on top of your kidneys. And obviously that system is your stress response system, right? But what happens to a lot of women is when they hit that perimenopausal transition, that axis is already under a lot of stress and a lot of strain. And the problem with that is when we transition through perimenopause, our little adrenal glands are supposed to take over the production of sex hormones from our ovaries, right? When they're not able to do that because we've been super, super stressed and chronically stressed and juggling too many things, basically because the adrenals can't do that, the body has a backup system for producing sex hormones in the perimenopause. And guess what that is? Fat. So it will create more body fat so that you can actually produce sex hormones. So actually part of the reason women gain weight in perimenopause, and particularly weight around the middle, is actually because they've been chronically stressed, their adrenals are kaput, and so they can't take over the role of producing the sex hormones. If you get the HPA axis sorted, if you've managed the stress, it can go a long way to reducing that weight gain that you get in perimenopause. And, you know, the odd good quality fruit juice is not going to be a problem. You know, it's more the refined sugars and the refined carbs.
Okay, thank you.
Oh my God, that brilliantly
Great
said.
question, Carol.
Yeah, and brilliantly answered as well in the scientific way of organs functioning, as well as like how important are the adrenals in all of this conversation, particularly with digestive issues. But what I do want to add to that is that there's a misunderstanding in a little bit of what's been told to us, like, you know, sugar is bad, sugar is this, don't eat sugar, low sugar. We have carbohydrates, right? And carbohydrates come in two forms, simple carbohydrates and complex carbohydrates. Simple carbohydrates are your pastas, your grains, everything that is processed, all of that, and processed sugars. Our complex carbohydrates are the fruits and vegetables. And so we as mammals and we as part of the human species thrive and eat carbohydrates. It is the number one food source on the planet. When we look out, everything that's living and growing, including that plant, including us, is carbohydrate. So that we can't just blanket all of, you know, sugar onto carbohydrates. It's far more complex conversation, and we need to, if we're sticking to whole foods, complex carbohydrates, that's the good sugars that we need. We shouldn't really be explaining them as sugar, but glucose. And our body runs on glucose. Our brain runs on glucose, and our liver runs on glucose, like elemental number one building block. So if we give that a bad rep, or we stop eating glucose, our body will make us eat it. But we will grab the cookies, we'll grab the chocolate, we'll grab the simple carbohydrates, the wrong stuff, instead of potentially giving permission to start eating the fruits and vegetables, right? Yeah.
Okay.
Question number 2.
Question number 2, and it has to do with detox. Are there any times where detoxing is not the right thing to do? Okay.
We have Zoe already. So Zoe, you know when people notice their question, it's like, yes, you know, I love it. Everyone, this is Zoe's question. If you weren't sure about that, I think we're clear now. It's good.
Well, obviously there are different forms of detox. We've established that, right? So I'm not necessarily talking about a gentle detox, which would be, say, a whole foods detox, right? A sort of more gentle approach. That's much more accessible and good for most people to do most of the time, right? However, if we're talking about something like a cleanse, right? Some sort of modified fast, a juice cleanse, a broth cleanse, even a water fast, then there are certainly contraindications to that. And there are quite a lot of contraindications. So one would be, for example, if you were burnt out. So if you were really super stressed, it's not a great time to do that kind of detox. And also if you are, for example, anemic, it's also a really bad idea. You need to get your iron levels sorted before you do any kind of fast. There's also obviously chronic conditions that you wouldn't want to do it in. Like, for example, if you had kidney disease or liver disease, even certain cancers, but that's a whole nother topic. We could do a whole talk on that. And obviously certain life stages, it wouldn't be suitable either. And also, depending on where you are in your sort of hormone status, it's not always good for every woman at every time of her menstrual cycle to do it, depending on her health. But some women, it's absolutely fine to do it any time in the menstrual cycle, but that's sort of on an individual basis. Yeah.
Oh, Zoe was ready for that one. Goodness gracious me. So great answers. So are there any other questions? While we do that, Tracy, I remember a while ago we had this conversation about fasting. In the back there, are you? We had a conversation about fasting, and I remember you saying that people are doing themselves damage actually by doing these particular fasts and these particular detoxes at certain times. So I know that we've spoken a lot about detoxing today, but maybe what comes up for you as one of the big mistakes that people are making? Zoe mentioned a few there, but some of the biggest mistakes that people are making about this detoxing and fasting.
Mainly that once we start that process, I probably compare it to taking antibiotics. You're not doing the full cycle. So if we don't have the right minerals or the right support, our body can't disperse of it. We need our detox pathways clear so that things can go out. And that's why we do this very quick one where we support every level quickly. But after that, we have a look, because often we can't read what's happening in the body to give people that kickstart. But after that, we want to grow a way that their body can function properly, and what they may generationally not being detoxing properly as a family. That's why they have those inherited diseases, which is another subject.
Thank you.
Yeah, things can mutate into something else if it's not out.
Got it.
That makes sense.
Yeah, no, that was it. So we have a question over here, and just quickly, so remember, Health Hub Bali, you'll find on Instagram and all the good places, Health Hub Bali. Tuesday Talks goes into this in a much deeper level, a much deeper way, so make sure that you go and check it out. So, a question, yeah.
I also have two questions. The first one builds up on this question a little bit in terms of how often would you recommend Zoe and Oksana to do a radical detox, like a cleansing? Because I think that we have to differentiate between let's say a detoxicated lifestyle and a detoxification, as for example doing a retreat, or you know what I mean. So what would you recommend in terms of the radical detox? How often a year, for example, should a person do that?
In my opinion, I think once a year minimum. It's almost like we take the car into service once a year to get it checked and the oil filters, replaced, and, the indicators checked and everything the same should be with this vehicle. We should be able to kind of get the warranty of roadworthy for the next year. If our lifestyles are really sort of up and down, and there's alcohol and there's drugs, or there's, really bad food, and you can be honest with yourself and know that, it's probably about twice a year this time. And then between that, you can always look at, there's intermittent fasting you can do on a daily base, or add one day a week to fast, or do juices or water, or we can add detox tools into our week, like saunas and more exercise and doing weeks without alcohol or coffee and things like that. So it's a continuous in and out, that it shouldn't just be an extreme, oh, I have a full-on year and then I detox for a week and I'm doing great and then I go back to the lifestyle. Hopefully it starts to change the habits as well.
Rory, go.
Can I add a spanner in the works?
Of course you can, mate.
Because, this is one thing that I got so caught up on, is focusing on the problem. And it's like what you focus on expands, right? So this whole concept of chronic disease, and I was like, no, I don't want to focus on that anymore. I don't want to focus on detoxification, the 1 week where I radically detox. I don't want to focus, like, what can I do for 99% of the time? You know, and even this concept of, like, food as medicine, like, we're not talking about saturation. Like, when it comes back to, like, yeah, what can we eliminate? What can we take out? How can we fix the environment? Epic. Awesome. Take out all the bad shit. We know what it is. You know, we're responsible for the choices we make. And yes, if we live in clean environments, we make better choices, probably don't need to do anything to support the detoxification system because it's not under as much load or stress, which again comes to our choices, the way we live, our internal stress, our external stress, the environmental stress, our choices stress, everything, right? But if we talk about saturation, then it's like, how do I nourish my body every single day? How do I support these processes every single day? You know, like carbon-based life forms, carbon, hydrogen, nitrogen, oxygen, phosphorus, sulfur. We're like chinops. That's like what all of us are made from, including the plants and the animals. We're literally just moving elements from one life form to the next, whether you eat the animals or you eat the plants, which the animals also eat, or you do breath work to get oxygenation up, or you go in nature and surf and breathe and take deep breaths whilst you're exercising. That is oxygenation. If you get water, 3 liters of water a day from Bali Spring versus the distilled aqua water, which has absolutely sweet F-all in it, you might need to go to Bali Buddha and get some minerals and chuck it in, right? So we've got these concepts, and we just I think we need to talk about saturation, because if we're not all in depletion, then we don't have to have these really complex protocols of like, oh crap, you got kidney disease, you got this, you got that, you got all these other things, because your body is naturally regenerating every day, and it's got the building blocks we need to do that every day. And then these processes just become like what we naturally do. When my dog's sick, he disappears for 3 days. Yeah, he fasts. Yeah, and he chills out and like lays at the beach and does nothing. He doesn't try to get up and go to work and like push on through. Yeah, kids do that too, right? So it's like, and this is our innate wisdom. We've got to start tuning into that, tuning into saturation, and then these processes are just natural, and we support it depending on our lifestyle.
Love it. So we'll go to Zoe, but then look at that, Tracy. Look, the hand is coming. Tracy wants a mic. Tracy, go on, darling. It's okay. We'll come at you after Zoe. Thank you.
Otherwise, I'll forget what I'm going to say.
Point at your mouth, remember.
What do you want to ask me?
Yeah. With these radical resets, it's just to bring awareness and to recognise that from that we're talking of a personal journey. It's something that's sometimes never addressed. We're talking lifestyle medicine and whole living, whole life. Bali's got a space where you can learn this. And why not use that instead of just coming for surfing and partying and things like that? Because that's what the Balinese would like to offer in their Usada, and we've had that on other means. Just what the ground is very rich, the herbs are rich, they've got the science behind it, and that's what we'll be sharing. But first, we use the science to identify what's happening, because the reality is, I'm actually from Australia. Before when I left there, 1 in 2 males were having diagnosis of prostate, and 1 in 3 females with the breast cancer. They're both hormone-driven cancers. I would say 85% of that was emotional, that was shifting all their things. If their detox pathways were clear, their body would be able to cope with the traumas that they were having to go through, the sustained stress they're going through. So that's the message, because we just had another person, I call them a guru or a teacher, been living here, she's gone back to her country, and now she's got 4th stage cancer. And she was a teacher, she had colon cancer, all right? Teacher of how to eat food and do yoga and things. So I want people checked, I want their baselines checked, and if you only do it every now and again, because instead of getting that, it's too hard to turn things around.
So thank you. That was Zoe, and then we'll go for your You see how your question stimulated all of this? It's good. So you've got question number 2 coming, but Zoe answered question number 1, I think. Yeah.
Remind me which question.
It's coming. So do you want to repeat the question?
Yeah, so my...
Every season.
Yeah, so Guzman, that microphone, please. Yeah.
Yeah, so my second question was for you, Zoe. So I figured that a lot of people really suffer from, as you said, like PMS and endometriosis lately. So I have the feeling that the numbers are increasing. I don't know if it's related to the fast accelerating world pace of living, but I don't know. It's like, it's weird for me personally because within my friend circle, more and more people get it. I'm 30 now, and even my best friends I've been knowing for like 20 years, they had like the same period as I. Sorry guys, but I shouldn't apologize actually.
But why do we have to apologize about that, right? Why is it taboo? It shouldn't be taboo.
There we go.
You're doing beautifully, darling. Bring it. Keep bringing it. Keep bringing it.
No, but you know, it's like for me, for example, I'm so gifted with it. Like I have no issues, nothing at all. But people that also didn't have issues all of a sudden, and all of a sudden they get this diagnosis like endometriosis, etc., PCO syndrome. So what is like behind all that? Like, is it really a new disease that has been discovered, kind of, or has it always existed but people were just not aware of it?
It is getting more and more common. You know, some of the statistics put like the rates of things like endometriosis at the moment in like various Western countries at like 1 in 10 women, and also PCOS is similar numbers, right? And obviously with PCOS, where you get multiple cysts on your ovaries and you often get irregular cycles and missing periods as well, it's one of the biggest causes of infertility in the Western world. And the thing is, it is, in my experience, it's very much diet and lifestyle related and environmental as well, because obviously there's so many chemicals that are influencing us, and some of the chemicals that we are ingesting or inhaling or absorbing are endocrine disruptors. So they literally directly alter our hormonal balance, and they affect women obviously hugely, but they affect men too, right? So there's a whole other thing with male hormone imbalances as well, and low testosterone. But the thing is, a lot of these chemicals were not originally invented as anything hormonal, but we discovered after we released them into our environment that they had these hormonal impacts, basically. So we're kind of a little bit in a soup of those kind of things, and microplastics are part of this, right? So that's a big factor. And then the other thing is, you know, diets that compromise people's digestive health. So as Oksana was saying, you know, that make people constipated, because if one of the major routes that our body actually breaks down old sex hormones and all hormones and eliminates them from the body is via the liver and the bowel. So if we've got a sluggish liver and if we've got constipation in our bowel is not eliminating in a timely fashion, we can actually reabsorb some of those chemicals back into our blood circulation, and so or reabsorb those hormones rather back into our circulation. So we've got like the external synthetic hormones, then we've also got our own hormones. So that's a massive cause in my experience. So yeah, so we're sort of dealing with a lot of things, but you can. One of the things I teach, I like have a program for women called She Code, right, which is all about educating women and empowering women with how they can take steps to change their diet and lifestyle and their mindset, even to alter their hormone balance and treat these conditions actually. But one of the things that you can control, you can't control everything, obviously. You can't control, you know, if you go out on your bike and you're in a shortcut and you're stuck behind a big van, right, you're going to be breathing in that stuff. But you can control certain things within your environment, right, and the choices you make with the foods you buy, and also the things you put on your skin, you know, and that's a big thing that I think women are exposed to even more than men, is makeup, beauty products, all this kind of toiletries and stuff, which are full of endocrine disrupting chemicals. So if you learn about those and what you need to avoid, that's a big way you can reduce your exposure as a woman as well.
Oh,
Can I just add to that 1 minute?
go on, Rory. Go on, mate. Great answer, Zoe. Great question.
Yeah, so endocrine disrupting chemicals, obviously environmentalist medicine is such a big thing for me, because most of us are these like fish in dirty fish ponds, right? Yeah? And then we're like trying to do all this stuff. You know, we're trying to like detox ourselves, but it's like the fish pond is dirty. So I want us all to just kind of like step back for a minute and just like, everyone's like, oh, back, you know, my grandma, they grew up with that natural food on the table. So it's like, what changed? We changed. You know, like we've wiped out since 1970 about 60 to 80% of all living species. All. I'm talking all. That's us. That's the generation before us and us. And in that time, we created what? An industrial and a technological revolution. Apparently we're the smartest species on the planet that destroys its own home. We wouldn't have to talk about 90% of this stuff if we could change the systems and the environments in which we live in. And it's like, if you look at the periodic table, there's 30, like, out of like what? Who knows how many elements there are? They're like 130, 200? I don't know. But anyway, there's 30 that are made for the human body that are meant to be part of the human body. Everything else is mildly toxic. Everything else. So if you want to look at your mate who's got a paint factory and that's going into the water, you want to talk about microplastics and that aqua bottle that you throw into the bin, which doesn't end up anywhere other than probably in the ocean, and then it's in your fish. And you're sitting here and you're wondering about how this crap gets into our body and how our different organ systems are overloaded, whether it's the reproductive system, the digestive system, the pituitary. Like, we're just missing the point on so many freaking levels. And I'm sorry to be the one that kind of like shares this, but it's like, it's the truth. And I promised myself I was going to be unbridled with this and just be like straight up. Our generation needs to change it for the next generation. If we can do that since 1970, then what can we do in the next 40 or 50 years? And I think that's the thing that really matters.
Brother man, Oksana.
Can I just add a little bit of my take and continuation of the conversation with Zoe? Our reproductive system sits underneath our colon, right, or large bowel. And the large bowel is our sewage system. And then there's the small intestines, and it's all packed inside of there. That's our sewage system. That's where there's a lot of the constipation, and there's a saying that says, if you're not digesting, you're fermenting, right? It's fermentation and putrefaction that's happening in the stomach. And so a lot of times, whether it's a hormonal conversation, I would first look at it as an organ conversation. Because cysts, whether it's a boil outside or it's inside, it's actually just a lymphatic drainage system. It's gunk going, where am I going to put this? I don't know what to do with this. And a lot of times I find that cleaning the colon, opening the detox pathway, allowing things to drain, and all those issues also start to go away. Thank you.
You know, we're going to bring this to Tracy. You have to pass the microphone there. So we're going to bring this session to a close. Tracy, I want you to wrap us up, and I'll give you some time to think about whole health and what brings us all in. The fact that today's topic is part of this whole health journey. Rory outlined it. Everyone has got a part to play in this. So it'd be nice for you just to tie it all together for us in a minute or two. Right, so up until that point, just remember, we're here every Monday. Again, Tropical Nomad, Itchy, who else is it? Itchy, Guzman, Sister Ayu work very, very hard. I want to appreciate them. They're my brothers and sisters. Oh, so good. And obviously to you here, the audience who come every week, Sister Carol's here every week. Thank you for your great questions. Thank you for everybody who's new, first time here. We do this every week. It's been 4 years without a stop. This is episode number 320, and we keep on going. And that's how we roll. It's coming. Oh. Thank you, my brother. Thank you. And you know, Oksana, Sister, Brother Rory, Sister Zoe, and obviously our mother Tracy. Just want to really thank you for giving of your time. I've learned so much sitting here that I wish I was sitting there, right? And not on camera so I can write this stuff down. Because there's been each of you have given me these like goosebump moments, right? And I love that. And I'm going to have to watch this again to get what they were. But really incredible insights. I just want to thank you for being yourselves, being honest, being communicative, and just saying it how it is. So I just want to really appreciate you guys for that in a huge way. Because it really, why we did this is to get this information out there. Health Hub Bali, Tracy, we're brothers and sisters, we're friends, we're close, but this is what it's about, getting this information out there to people, right? And then they can have the tools to take their own health back for themselves, right? So Tracy, no pressure.
Yeah, I would have said that.
Bring it over to you. I know that's what you would have said.
Just information everyone needs, and guys like this we've had the last 7 months, more than 20 here. Amazing information. I can't begin to say how much I appreciate everybody, and it's just about knowing. I thought everybody knew people like this. I'd like everybody to have access to people like this that can share. But for next year, getting serious, what Rory's talking about, we've got doctors and nurses now who've put together a group. They've left their hematology or whatever they were doing, and they're rewilding. They're getting food that's not even just cultivated, and there's a big turn to that. So that is part of whole health, about getting the food. How can we get it then into our body? And we've got these people are based here, and then some have moved back overseas, different places, but they're sprouting up the work that they started here. So we will be sharing some of that. Rory, so don't worry, the conversation will get there. No, that's conversations that matter. This year's been about functional medicine and recognising that despite the advances in science, we've got issues with our body.
I need to bring the TV.
No. And Rory's saying we've got a meeting place that's about to be finished at Health Hub, and we'll be having more and more talks. Oksana's moving down to our area, we're here, and she'll be totally available for guidance to a natural hygiene, and of course Zoe as well in the hormone world, and Rory's always... Yeah, no, he's always there. Yeah.
But we love that, Rory. I mean, how would you be any other way? So what we're going to do is we're gonna give these guys a round of applause shortly. Then we'll switch off the cameras, and about 5 or 10 minutes of any other questions, and then after that, feel free to grab them. Maybe not throw them in a corner, as I said before, but grab them, ask them questions, and they're here for you. So round of applause, everybody. Thank you very much.